Hey, what's up, guys? Demogorgon here. Today we're talking about Washington, D.C. Here are 5 interesting demographic facts about the nation's capital. Let's go. Okay, so fact number 1 is that D.C. has the highest percentage of people with a grad degree. It's at over 27%. So it's more than double the national average. It easily beats out other rich urban areas like New York and Seattle, Chicago, San Francisco. In fact, grad degrees are so common in the District of Columbia that it's affected the job market. So check this out. You could have a bachelor's degree from an amazing university, but that might not be enough to get you the job of your dreams because, well, you're competing against other people who also have that same good bachelor's degree, in addition to a master's degree, whether it's a law degree, an MBA, master's in public policy, master's in public health, all sorts of advanced degrees. So that leads us to fact number 2, which is about income. So who would have thought that the nation's capital would also be one of the nation's wealthiest? So the median household income in the DC area is $110,000. Now that's not the highest, but it's definitely up there. What's more interesting is if you look at the county level data, 5 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the United States surround the District of Columbia. They're all on the Virginia or Maryland side, which are basically the suburbs. So for fact number 3, you may be wondering, how on earth is DC actually this rich? Well, the answer is Uncle Sam and all of his buddies. Check this out. So 23% of people in the DC area work for some type of government entity. That could be the federal government, state, or local government as well. Now that number balloons to 52% when you factor in other jobs that are either directly or indirectly in the government supply chain or the government's ecosystem. So you could work for a labor union, you could be a political scientist, you could be a lobbyist, you could be a federal IT contractor. They all contribute to that government ecosystem I'm mentioning. So right now that's been an incredible asset for DC, but in the long run, it actually poses a bit of a concentration risk. You don't want to put 52% of your eggs in one basket. You really need to diversify beyond that. So let's see how DC does in the coming decades. So speaking of diversity, that brings us to fact number 4, which is about race. So for a long time, DC's nickname was Chocolate City, and that was because back in the 1950s, Washington became the first big American city to have a black majority. Okay, so that nickname held for like 50 years, but fast forward to present day and DC might get renamed Milk Chocolate City because the demographics have changed substantially. So the actual District of Columbia went from being like 70-something% black down to just 40-something% black. Now, the data gets even more interesting if you expand out to the DC metro as a whole. 43% white, 24% black, 17% Hispanic, and then 11% Asian. What really pops about this statistic is how evenly balanced it all is. So if you take the largest racial group minus the smallest racial group, you get a diversity index of sorts. So in DC's case, it's 31. The closer that number is to 100, the more homogenous a place is. The closer that number is to 0, well then the more evenly balanced its diversity. So fact number 5 is that DC is super transplant heavy. Over 2/3 of the entire population was born elsewhere. That's the second highest percentage in the country. So let's give you some more context here. Census defines native born as meaning you were born in Virginia, Maryland, District of Columbia, or West Virginia. Everyone who's born outside of those 4 states is considered a transplant. Now, transplants are kind of an interesting demographic topic because it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you want a place to have lots of transplants because it's a proxy for desirability. People wouldn't voluntarily move en masse to some location if that location sucked. But on the flip side, you don't want too many transplants because otherwise it starts to drown and suffocate the original local culture that existed before all the transplants showed up. I guess to be determined which side of the fence DC ultimately lands on, but right now it's trending in the direction of more and more transplants. Okay, so that's 5 demographic facts about the nation's capital. Hope you learned something interesting. Thanks for watching Demogorgon. See you on the next one.